was asked to talk about Kundalini awakening in relation to self-realization, that many people talk about Kundalini awakening, but they don't talk about self-realization. Again, Kundalini awakening is now a big business because most of the people see an opportunity, but they have no capacity to actually give an experience. They only speculate about it. The same goes with all types of Kundalini yogas and all. Awakening to the self is possible either through someone else or by yourself. You can get awakened by yourself if you turn your mind, your conscious power of your consciousness inwards. When it turns within, you experience your natural being. If you realize that this is your natural being and you perceive it in your body, it permeates your entire being, it vibrates in your cells, you realize, okay, all the rest is just somewhat like waves, arise and go, rise and subside. So you start going more and more back into your natural being. That is called meditation, absorption. So going back again into the natural being is called absorption. Now, is this a realization? No, it's not a realization. It's just a beginning. It is not self-realization. It's only the realization of the natural being. But yet the state of awareness is not wholesome, you may say. It's not wholesome. It's only you become just aware of your natural being at that point. This is the point that most of the people delude others because they assume that they've achieved something and they are something. The path of spirituality, of true spirituality, is not the path of becoming. It's the path of unbecoming. It's the path of dissolution of all kinds of illusions and false notions. It's not the path of clinging or creation of more and more illusions in this world. It's the path of simplification. It's the path of selflessness. Selflessness means the flow, unconditional flow of self, unconditional free flow of self-expression, yet without clinging, without making anything more important than the other. It cannot be understood through words. It has to be perceived in one's being. Only then you can say, oh yes, I resonate with it because I know it within myself. Before you know something within yourself, you cannot truly relate to it. At least you have to know it in glimpses so that you start relating to that. The same goes with scriptural knowledge. You cannot relate to it if you haven't had an experience. You may like it, but you cannot relate to it. That's why when people are awakened, they relate, they start relating, but only through the process of refinement. The more we refine, the more we become selfless, the more we become simple, the more we flow and express freely without trying to show something to someone, without trying to perform, without trying to achieve anything, because there is no achievement. We just evolve. We see it as an organic way of self-development and evolution, where evolution is not seen as some kind of ambitious achievement or successful venture. It is seen as a process of unbecoming, of realizing illusions and disillusioning ourselves. So the simplicity, the stillness become they sprout out. But they cannot be boxed, they cannot be put into anything. You cannot achieve anything with it but your own peace. You cannot receive awards for that. It is something that is absolutely complete and yet cannot be put into words. So on this path, we evolve through the connection with the ultimate being, through the transmission. Shaktipat transmission is the transmission of grace. This grace can be transmitted through a teacher, or within ourselves. But we need to learn how to navigate through illusion. So when we start learning how to recognize illusion within ourselves, we start realizing certain things. So self-realization is not something that happens to us like once. It is a process. It is a process of self-realization, from awakening to the complete transformation. There is a long process of self-refinement. Through this process of self-refinement, you realize illusions, distortions, veils, and you observe yourself and you learn how to let them go. When you completely let it go, that is called a realization. So you've realized a certain aspect that was of a delusive nature and that was driving you, and now it no longer drives you. So the waves associating with this aspect no longer arise in you. That is called realization. It refined, it released something. Now you dwell in peace. But then there is another thing, maybe. There is another wave arising. And now you need to refine that as well. So as long as we are not fully refined, we cannot dwell in peace and contentment and stillness for long. So true meditation is this moment when we actually realize something, we let it go, we released tension, which is associated with a certain aspect or delusion within ourselves. And now we dwell in stillness and silence and equanimity, whatever the word is. Then if we go deeper and we realize there are even finer and subtler forms of distortion, so we refine them as well. Because now we can perceive ourselves as a still, equanimous space. And if something arises, if the space starts vibrating, then we realize that that is not us, and we start refining that as well. And the more we refine, the more we realize that that equanimity, that stillness, that contentment, that blissful emptiness that we've perceived once only as a glimpse actually is us, is that self, is that ultimate being. So the complete realization is there only when there is absolute emptiness, when we are free and empty from all these distortions, when whatever is arising or may disturb us, as long as we're in the physical body and staying in the connected to the collective, it can be let go. Nothing sticks to the emptiness. That is a state of freedom, because consciousness dwells in its own blissful being. It doesn't cling. And even if it supports something within the physical reality, it can let go of it anytime. This knowledge cannot be taught, as meditation cannot be taught, as yoga cannot be taught, because these are the fruit of that integration of the empty blissful being with the physical body. And that is called transformation. When that takes place, there is transformation of the physical body as well. The physical body changes, it refines as well. It goes on a different level, because it's not only about the physical body. All the aspects, subtler aspects or essences of ourselves integrate within the being. And the light of the self permeates the flesh. That's called the enlightenment of the body. This is only possible when one's consciousness becomes empty of all the distortions while living in the physical body, while being embodied. And that's why the consciousness reveals its true nature through the flesh as well. At this day and age, it's a rare process, but it's a possibility. As long as we are able to let go, to realize the way we got tangled. So if we see the path of tangling, if we see the path of bondage, we can liberate ourselves. First, we have to realize what has bound us. What is the bondage? Once we know what the bondage is, we can liberate ourselves. So the Kundalini awakening is the process of binding us by showing us the illusions within the selves. If we don't have proper awareness and understanding of this process, we can bind ourselves even more, and there will be no self-realization. But if we have proper understanding, inner maturity, and realize how the ambitions and all kinds of distortions and veils plays us out, we are able to come out of this, and this process becomes the path of liberation, the path of self-realization, the realization of the true essence, and actually establishment in that true essence. Not only realizing as a glimpse, but establishment in that essence. Then our entire body starts vibrating, emanating radiation. It transmits that pure consciousness. In order to receive knowledge, we need to be that pure, empty vessel in which consciousness can reveal its secrets, its aspects, the way it creates the illusion. This is the path of mastery and realization. Then, if people use creative forces, emotional energy for occult means and other, they tangle. So the Kundalini awakening itself is not the path to self-realization necessarily. It can also be the path to bondage. And for most of the people, it is the path to bondage, to more illusions, because they don't know how to handle the creative energy that releases. They cannot handle all these pains of the past when they reveal themselves. In this case, true grace and guidance are very important. And the true grace appears only when one is an empty vessel. When one freed himself or herself, at least on the level of concepts and ideas, when one has no expectations, no forms to cling to, the knowledge appears then also in the form of a guide or a teacher who can offer a certain insight. But all the work has to be done by the person himself or herself. This path is not of worshipping. This path is not of power distances. This is the path of connection and transmission, where one is evolving because of their own desire to evolve and refine and understand the truth, with an assistance from a higher realms, from a higher vortex. But this level is possible only when one has already emptied self to a certain degree, when one is at least able to see through the veils to some degree and recognize the truth, at least in glimpses. That's why that kind of knowledge is rare and for very few, not because there is a need to show some kind of a specialty about the path, but because this day and age is like that. The day and age of delusion does not allow people to break through. The gravitational pull is too strong, the resistance is too strong. But that's why only those who resonate with this understanding in the body, because they perceived something, they can attempt to break through these illusions. But attempt doesn't guarantee the completion. The completion is guaranteed only by selflessness and degree to simplify selves, degree to actually break through all the illusions, no matter what. That's the path. That's the Siddha Kundalini Yoga. And that's the path of self-realization, but with which awareness?